fears no questions.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to In-Depth. Syria and Iraq, a homeland for the world's oldest civilizations, have become a nest for terrorists in the last few years, generating instability, destruction, and bloodshed. But who cares? The international community reacted only when the catastrophe taking place in Syria and Iraq has posed a serious challenge to regional and international security. Now, what's the future of foreign terrorists who are returning back to their countries? And in case of a backfire, how Western governments would react? I will discuss these questions and more with Mr. Haytham Mouzahem. He is a researcher and political analyst. Welcome, Mr. Mouzahem, to our show.
Hello.
Mr. Mouzahem, today in Iraq, the Office of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki stated that the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, known as ISIL, cut off the Euphrates River flow at Fallujah, causing a decline in water levels in provinces in the center and the southern of Iraq, thus threatening the lives of millions of people. This is indiscriminate punishment for the people of Iraq, regardless of their sect. I mean, how did you perceive this news, and what are the main goals of ISIL by cutting off the water?
Actually, the ISIS, this terrorist group, has shown no mercy, no any human behavior during the last years. They are killing people every day in the streets, in the schools, in the hospitals by their terrorist suicide bombs in Baghdad, in all the other provinces. So now it's another way to kill people by cutting the water from the Euphrates River. So actually we have to denounce this act, and that should be a message to the whole world that this terrorists, they have no mercy, and there should be a cooperation against them from all the regional country and the international society.
Actually, ISIL always claims that they are fighting the so-called infidels to create the Islamic Caliphate in the Levant region. But by cutting off the water, they are punishing even those people who might be in support of ISIL. So what's the main goal behind cutting? Regardless if they are killing a lot of people, are they trying to put some pressures on the government or to punish some people?
No, from their view, I mean, even when they implement these terrorist attacks in the streets or in the schools, so they don't kill only Shia, for example, who they consider infidels. They also kill other Muslims, Sunni or Arabs, Kurds, Christians. So the bomb does not distinguish people from their sex. Also, they are targeting like mainly Shia area, but I mean, but they justify that they from their interpretation of Islam. This like very bad interpretation that they can, for example, sacrifice with some Sunni to kill more Shia. You know, this is like justified.
They consider them as martyrs if it's for the cause of Islam.
They have something they call in Arabic like people who are for example, tasattur. Means in Arabic you can just hide behind someone to to not be targeted. So you can kill that one if he is innocent to target the one you want to kill. So it's justified from their own interpretation, and that's like a shame, and because this is
how the Europeans and the Western communities are having their stereotypes on the Muslims in the whole world. I mean, these people are individuals and they are causing a lot of harm to Islam itself. The people in the West are perceiving Islam by these people, so they are harming their religion in any way. And now the government of Iraq, they also said that they are compelled to use maximum force to save lives of people and farmlands by preventing these criminals and murderers from using Fallujah as a land pad for their crimes. How do you assess the coordination between the Iraqi government and the Americans in fighting terrorism in Iraq?
Actually, I mean, the Iraqi government is a bit slow. And they are very patient, and they waited like 2 years to deal with Al-Anbar crisis after Al-Qaeda, I mean ISIS group. They controlled Fallujah and many parts of Ramadi, so they were very slow to react and to intervene in this field. Regarding the coordination between the Iraqi government and the United States, it's not that good. I mean, recently Maliki visited Washington and he discussed this cooperation, and they promised him to help. Maybe they give him some arms, some like helicopters to fight this.
Maybe
but
drones.
It's not, yes, the drones also. But this is not enough. I believe the United States should pressure the regional countries who are allowing these fighters to come to Iraq from their lands to smuggle arms, and even they fund them because they need a lot of funds. So many regional countries, they are involved in this massacre in Iraq.
This is what I exactly wanted to ask you, Mr. Mouzahem, that some regional countries, namely Qatar and Saudi Arabia, are participating in the infiltration of and the influx of these terrorists into Iraq and into other countries. So what's the role of the United States? I mean, in the last few years, in the last couple of years, they also said that they are against terrorism in Syria, but they were not able to put pressure on their allies like Saudi Arabia and Iraq to stop the funding, at least, of these terrorist organizations. What should the Americans do?
I mean, we should not be very optimistic towards the United States strategy, because the United States has its own interest and strategy in Iraq and in Syria. So their strategy is to make this country, especially Syria and Iraq, make it weaker and to weakness these countries and to weaken the army and the people and its resources. So we don't have to count on the United States. We have to count on ourselves, as Arabs, as Muslims, to cooperate to fight the terrorism. I mean, the United States and Israel, they are benefiting from this sectarian conflict in the region between Sunni and Shia for their own interest. You know the rule, it's like divide and rule.
Exactly.
No? So I don't think the United States is like want to do something and they cannot do.
So they are just keeping these states busy with their internal conflicts in Iraq and in other states, so to make them busy with their own internal affairs and not to look into other regional issues for hegemony or to extend their influence.
At least if they are not involved in this sectarian conflict, if they are not like trying to increase this conflict or this crisis, they are indifferent, because when they were in Iraq, they were involved, and they tried to fight Al-Qaeda and its branches in Iraq during the American occupation, because they want to save their soldier lives. Now, when they withdraw from Iraq, they are not concerned like they should.
Mr. Mouzahem, I want to ask you about the Iraqi army. To what extent do you believe the Iraqi army is able to eliminate the roots of terrorism? Because in the statement of the Iraqi government, it says that they are asking for the help of the people, the residents of these areas. Do you think the Iraqi army is able to crush terrorism in Iraq?
I mean, the Iraqi government, and it avoids to fight the people of Anbar, people of Fallujah and Ramadi, because these terrorists, they are living and they are inside this village, inside the cities, and they are using people like hostages. So the Iraqi army is able to, for example, strike this area by its airplanes, by its
Tanks and
tanks and whatever of arms, you know, but they don't want to cause a lot of
damages between the
damage
civilians.
between civilians, you know, especially among this sectarian conflict, because there is a conflict with the tribes, with the Sunni tribes in Anbar, who claim they have some requests from and demands from the government, and the government is not replying to them, is not accepting to resolve this problem. So recently Maliki said he wants a political solution with Al-Anbar to this crisis, to the protest they were being for a year, and he wants to separate the people of and the tribes of Anbar from the terrorists. This is why the Iraqi is asking help from the tribes, from the people, to avoid themselves from the terrorists of ISIS.
Mr. Mouzahem, in the last few years, and if we see the experience of the states who fought against terrorism, all the military operations were failed because it led to further deterioration and escalation of fighting. So in Iraq, some people are saying that the political solution is the best one by reconciliation, but others also saying that we need an education. I mean, we have to start from the roots of the problem. We have to educate our people against these very radical ideologies, because many people are ready to accept any kind of ideologies. Why we are in the 2014, our people of the region are still accepting such ideologies?
First of all, you are right. I mean, it should be in the education, should educate like children from their first classes about, you know, sectarianism, about terrorism, about how to know Islam like as a religion of plurality. It's not just one interpretation of Islam and the other are infidels, you know. You have to understand cohabitation with other religion, with other sects. But there is another problem. It's not only the education, should help. I mean, recently in 2007 to 2009, there was like a Sahawat experience with between the American army and the Iraqi army, and they were cooperating with these tribes who formed a Sahawat militia, and they were successful to beat Al-Qaeda and its cells in all the Sunni area. I mean, this should be repeated, and the government is trying to do that, you know, but unfortunately, because of some regional intervention and maybe some funding, and you know, and I don't want to be like biased to one part. The government made a lot of mistakes. I say should solve this political crisis from the day first. You know, they should not wait until the Qaeda infiltrated in the region.
Thank you, Mr. Mouzahem, but we will have to take our first break. Dear viewers, we have to take a short break. Please stay tuned. We will be right back.
In the world of business, numbers tell truth. Investors seek startups and bankers provide loans. Stocks rise and fall. Traders anticipate shipments and cargo ships unload. But we at Al-Etejah News spin the globe to bring you your weekly dose of business news.
Eye on the government. Eye on the Constitution. Eye on the system. Eye on the people and eye on the events. Eye on Lebanon, a show that zooms in and out of the latest events with a vivid lens.
Welcome back. We are discussing with Mr. Haytham Mouzahem, researcher and political analyst, the threat imposed by terrorist groups in Iraq and Syria. Now, Mr. Mouzahem, if you move to Syria, Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri has called for Islamist fighters in Syria to end the infighting that killed a one-time companion of Osama bin Laden called Abu Khalid al-Suri. If these groups the question here is, if these groups have the same ideology and the same goals at the end of the day, why they are fighting each other in Syria? Namely ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra, let's say.
Yes, it's right, they have the same ideology and the same principle and the same symbol, like Osama bin Laden as a leader of Al-Qaeda. But after bin Laden death, al-Zawahiri, he could not be like Osama. As a symbol, as to gather all this Al-Qaeda fighter under his umbrella. And because of many strikes, Al-Qaeda has been attacked by Americans in Afghanistan, in Iraq. There was a strategy of decentralization of Al-Qaeda. Now you find many cells of Al-Qaeda in the whole world, for example, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Africa, Somal. They are all affiliated to the ideology of Al-Qaeda, but they are not affiliated to or
so
related to
Al-Zawahiri.
Now it's decentralized. And recently, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, he has this conflict with Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the leader of Al-Nusra Front, because al-Baghdadi asked al-Julani to be like a part of its group, since al-Julani he was actually a part, and he sent him to Syria, and he had made allegiance to al-Baghdadi, so he asked him to obey him, and al-Julani refused that. Al-Zawahiri, he had a mediation between the two groups and asked al-Baghdadi to stay only in Iraq as a field of ISIL and keep Syria for al-Nusra as its main field. As you know, al-Baghdadi refused that, and he's and like some experts they say, there is some, and he's trying to establish a caliphate in Iraq, and he has like many of Al-Qaeda groups in Yemen, in Africa, even in Tunisia or Maghreb. They are ready to make allegiance to Baghdadi, not to Zawahiri.
So the main issue here, Mr. Mouzahem, is about power. Who controls where? It's not about who implements the religion, but who is ruling this area. So the rift between all these Al-Qaeda affiliated groups are about who will control the Middle East. It's not about religion, as they claim.
It's a power conflict, but also, due to religious understanding, if you are emir and you ask people to make allegiance to you, when they do that, they are like, they should obey you and they could not change. That's what happened with Julani.
Exactly.
And if you establish a caliphate, for example, in Iraq, while al-Zawahiri, he's like, hidden somewhere and he has no state. So the priority is to obey the one who is implementing the Sharia, and who has Imara, as caliphate or state, to rule. That's why, this is like a religious difference between them. And that shows, the priority for them is to rule, not to implement Islam or to just make peace here.
Mr. Mouzahem, other people, if we go back to Syria, they are questioning that the loyalty of the FSA, the Free Syrian Army, the so-called Free Syrian Army, they are saying that there is no difference between these Al-Qaeda groups and FSA. They are both implementing the same interpretation of Islam on the people. For example, only yesterday, the moderate rebels, or the good guys, as Mr. Kerry likes to call them, they killed a well-known Dutch priest, Frans van der Loo. He is 75 years old in Homs. And they always participate with the invasion of Christian villagers with other Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. So what's the difference between the good guys or the bad guys in Syria?
I mean, we cannot call them good guys. You know, they are all bad guys in terms of their understanding of Islam and their behavior of terrorism and killing and forcing people to implement a Sharia or
even convert,
to change their religion as Christian or Druze or or even killing Shia or Alawite because they have their different sects. I mean, it's a Saudi attempt to convince the Americans that the Islamic front, this is the good guys, moderate Muslims, and they are the same ideology, the same behavior as Al-Qaeda.
And ironically, they have an Osama bin Laden brigade in the Free Syrian Army ranks.
Yeah, even Abu Khalid al-Suri has like a very, was associated to Ahrar Sham, which is a part of Islamic front. So there is no difference between them. The difference is this group, which is called, this group of factions that called Islamic is related or is associated to Saudi Arabia. While Nusra Front is more associated to Qatar.
Exactly.
And that's why it's like regional conflict. It's like power conflicts, not about Islam. It's not about democracy.
Mr. Mouzahem, I was reading an article on CNN. It's titled "Forget Ukraine: Syria Now World's Biggest Threat." They are saying, the author is saying that Syria is in the process of becoming bridgehead of Europe, of Al-Qaeda and like-minded fanatics. And these people are now returning back to their countries, to Europe, to the United States, to Australia, and to other countries, and they are importing their new skills into these countries. To what extent do you believe the threat is imminent in the European societies?
I don't see a major threat about that. There is like some exaggeration about returning of these fighters to Europe or to the West. Some of them, they would return, we are not sure about it. But when they try to return, they are arrested and they put them in jail. They are controlling that. What the West is trying to do, especially Britain, France, who are supporting the rebels in Syria and these fighters, who they call moderate fighters or moderate opposition, they don't care about that. The main goal of them is to topple the regime of President Bashar al-Assad and to change the equation in Syria and in the region. So they don't care if some of these terrorists return to Europe and do some terrorist act, because it's more controlled than we think.
Mr. Mouzahem, my last question is from Lebanon. Hezbollah leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah said yesterday to As-Safir newspaper that the danger of terrorist attacks in Lebanon has significantly decreased after the Yabud war. Do you agree with this assessment?
Yes, I believe it would be decreased, but it would not be finished. Maybe because it's not only Yabrud or Kalamoun area which is the refuge of these terrorists. We have many areas in Lebanon that form a refuge for them, and they might prepare some surprise or some terrorist act. I hope not, but it could be.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much, Mr. Haytham Mouzahem, for your great insights. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our show for tonight. Our thanks for watching, and tune in tomorrow for a new episode of In Depth.